Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Overseas Chitrali. I hope you're all keeping safe in these crazy times. For today's episode, I'm going to be talking with Sahib Karim Khan. Sahib Karim Khan is the founder and the CEO of TP Consultants. TP Consultants was founded in 2010, and it's a management consultancy firm. Sahib has over 12 years of exposure with associations with organizations like Marriott, Mobilink, and Stimulus. Thank you for joining me, Karim. I hope you're doing well.
Thank you very much, Mushahid. I am glad to be here with you.
Yeah, thank you. It's been a very long time since we last spoke. I think a little over 10 years. I believe I was in grade 9 when I, last saw you and when you guys were visiting.
Yeah, it's been more than 10 years, and time flies, man. Time flies.
I know it's been crazy. You've since that time you've been involved in different organizations. You've been involved in leadership. You've traveled, abroad and got experience and exposure from different, universities, different, people from different backgrounds, and it's clearly shown in all the things that you've achieved.
Yeah, Alhamdulillah. Journey has been great, and I thoroughly enjoyed and learned a lot during my visit. I was in Ireland. I did my second master's from there. I also got the opportunity to do an executive certification in leadership and strategy from Cambridge. So that was amazing. I thoroughly enjoyed the time that I spent there. It was a great learning experience.
That's good. That's good. Yeah, I give a very brief introduction to you. Can you give a little bit more details and more in-depth introduction to yourself?
Sure. My name is Sahib Karim Khan, and professionally, I'm a management consultant and trainer, and I've been working in the industry for over 15 years now. Academically, I've done an MBA in human resource management and then a second master's in adult learning and development from Ireland. I've also done multiple certifications. I have an executive certification in leadership and strategy from University of Cambridge, UK. Then I've also got some other certifications from different institutions in UK, primarily in leadership and customer services. I have been doing hardcore training and consulting for the last 10 years now. And so far, the journey has been great.
That's wonderful to hear. Yeah, like you have a background of variety of things and from a variety of places. I'm curious about how where it all started from. But from let's say like from the time we met back in 2009 up to now. What were the things that you went through to get you to where you are right now?
Okay, so I think there wouldn't be just one or two things that resulted in what I do today. But definitely 2009 was a transformational year for me. I was working with Mobilink at that time. I was working as a team lead. But at that time, I decided to quit my job and start my MBA. Those were very tough times financially for Pakistan. And when I quit the job, a lot of people told me that you're not doing the right thing. You shouldn't be leaving the job. You shouldn't be quitting in these turbulent times. But I think I had made up my mind that I needed to focus on my career. I needed to do what I love doing, which is training and consulting. So at that time, I decided to leave that job, quit that job, and start my master's, my MBA. And I think that from that point onwards with that decision, because every decision that you make influences your life for good or for bad. So if you are clear about your decisions and what you want to achieve in future, then everything, it takes time, but you ultimately reach your goal. So I think 2009 was the year when I decided to take this step. And I think a lot has happened since then, but I think that was the most important point, the decision to quit the job and to start my master's and to focus on, doing training and consulting full time. So I think that changed a lot of things for me.
I hope I was a big influence in you making that decision. You know, not taking credit for anything, but
No, we had a very good time in Islamabad, and you guys were great hosts. And yes, I do remember having some interaction with you as well at that time.
yeah.
Uh, but 2009 was a very lucky year, I would say.
No, for sure, yeah. Uh, so how did TPE consultants come to be, after all that experience?
Okay. Uh, TP Consultants sort of it was born in 2009 again after I quit my job and I started doing my MBA. I was attending a workshop. It was I think 1 or 2 days uh, workshop where different speakers would come and share their experiences and stuff. And there was this one gentleman, I think his name was Farid, if I correctly remember. And he had written a book with the name of The Reboot.
Mm-hmm.
And in that book, he talked about entrepreneurship and, the challenges and how do you do it and stuff. So although that was not relevant to my field, he was a computer scientist or something like that. But I think that sort of pushed me a bit further to enter, the zone of being an entrepreneur. So I
Mm-hmm.
think from that point, I started thinking of, uh, creating or forming my own training or consulting firm. So I think that's how it started initially.
Mm-hmm. So did something in your past, push you to do to become an entrepreneur in leadership?
Leadership, yeah, I have been. I have always been fascinated by how humans think and how do they do what do they do.
Mm-hmm.
So leadership has been an area of interest for a very long time. Entrepreneurship, to be very honest with you, I had never thought about being an entrepreneur or
Mm-hmm.
setting up your own firm. And you can totally understand that being from Chitral, it's maybe we are not that good of businessmen. Uh, we probably do not have all the acumen that is needed
Mm-hmm.
to be a successful businessman or entrepreneur. But I think with the passage of time, after working in the corporate sector for a few years, I think I realized that, uh, if you want to do the way you want to do it uh, without any boundaries and stuff, then definitely you need to have your own setup. So I think that played a role in making me decide as to when and how I should go into entrepreneurship.
Mm-hmm. And I'm sure like your experience in different organizations before you went on your own, must have really helped you a lot in terms of knowledge, experience, and yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Uh, your corporate exposure, sort of trains you on a lot of things which a lot of entrepreneurs who, say, for example, people who have never worked in an organization, uh, it would take them a lot of time to learn those things, especially professionalism. How do you manage teams? Uh, what are the things which are critical for customers and stuff like that. So I think that is very important, and that learning was because of the work that I did with the corporate organization.
No, for sure, yeah. So you've been involved with a lot of leaders in Pakistan, different organizations. So what are some of the essential things that they're lacking, and how can they be improved?
Uh, well, I would rather not say lacking. I would say that it's a process of continuous growth and continuous learning. You have to be a lifelong learner.
Mm-hmm.
So people that I have met in Pakistan, people in leadership positions, there are times when people are very good at hard, but still at the same time, because they have not been sharpening the saw continuously, as the term goes, because they have not stayed in touch, they have not been learning throughout their lives, they sort of lack um, a thing or two at times. So I would not say lacking. I would say that, because they are not continuously learning, they are unaware of the transformations that are happening globally. So I think that is one of the things which leaders need to focus on. They need to understand that they do not know all the things all the time.
Mm.
So the
Is that
perception with
sorry, is that more of like the older generation or is it more of the younger generation who are not in touch with
I,
things that are going on globally?
I think it depends on the personality. So I have seen people who are very old, but they are still they keep learning, and then at the same time, I've seen young people who are not learning. So it is more of a personal thing than the age factor.
Hmm.
So yes, both kind of people do come across.
Yep, definitely. Okay. Um, so I mean, your consultants, is it more in like the cities, like the metropolitan cities of Pakistan?
Yeah, fortunately or unfortunately, most of the companies, their head offices are in Karachi, Lahore, and Islamabad primarily.
Hmm.
And as consultants and trainers, we sort of work most of the times with the head office people, or if we have to run training programs, these are considered as the main cities where everyone would come and attend the training sessions.
Hmm.
So yes, most of the times these 3, 4 cities would be sort of the hub for all such learning engagements for us.
Hmm. Are there any plans to kind of, go more into rural areas and do consultancy there? Like, Chitral?
I would love to, and there have been a few clients of mine in Chitral as well, in Chitral and Gilgit. But as
Hmm.
you know that these corporations do not operate in those remote areas. We have
Hmm.
very few organizations, some NGOs or some of the AKDN institutions that are working there. Um, so the trainers or consultants would love to go to such places, to be
Yeah.
very honest with you, but it all depends on the need. So wherever there is a need, uh, I'm always open to traveling. So be it within Pakistan or outside Pakistan,
Mhm.
I think that doesn't make any difference. But we would love if there were more organizations in the rural areas, and we would love to go there.
How has been the experience like with the organizations, in Chitral and Gilgit?
Well, my experience has been great.
Hmm.
Uh, I didn't work with a lot of organizations there. I worked with a few only, and people are very positive. They are eager to learn, uh, and I don't know, but because I'm also from Chitral, so when I went there as a trainer and as a consultant, they were more receptive. So I
Hmm.
think that also adds a value, because when people can connect with you, when people can find certain associations, it becomes easier for you as a trainer to deliver your message or to create the impact that you want to create through those learning engagements. So my experience has been amazing.
Mm. Nice. So what are like, let's say some of the issues that they're facing locally, in terms of leadership and management?
Well, I think one of the things which I found to be lacking was that because they have not got the exposure, at times that creates a problem for them, because uh, you see, minds are like parachute. It only works when it's open. And
Hmm.
when you are working in one organization, say for example for the last 10, 15 years, and you are working with the people that you know already. You are not working with multicultural, I mean, people coming from different areas with different mindsets.
Hmm.
So at times you stop growing. So the benefit of living in cities is that you work with different kinds of people. There are, say for example, 100, 200 organizations. You keep on moving, you learn, You learn something new every single day. But when we talk about, say, for example, Chitral or Gilgit, there are very few organizations. So they do not have a lot of choices as to where they can go. And most of the people who are working in those organizations are the native Chitralis or Gilgitis. So
Mhm.
when you are working, when you are always working with like-minded people, it's not a very good thing to grow, because when you want to grow, you grow when you are out of your comfort zone, when you are facing challenges, when you are working with people who are different than you, who have different, say, for example, values or different mindsets. So when those things come in part, your learning curves goes up.
Mhm.
But in villages or in places like Gilgit or Chitral, I think that creates a bit of problem.
Yep, yeah. So I guess hopefully, one day more people will come in there, or maybe more people from Chitral, like Gilgit will, go to the cities, and get more exposure like that. That's interesting. Yeah, it's very interesting to hear that you've done some work in those areas. Yeah. So I've been curious about, we live in a very data-driven era, and the curiosity is such that we have data being generated every single day, every single second, and it's crazy. From selfies to secret files, there's data everywhere, and we have easy access to it, right? And you also mention that there's some organizations or some people who are not willing to learn new things as times are changing. So in this data-driven era, how can those guys stay up to date with the new technologies, and how can they take advantage of this data-driven era?
Okay. Well, there are two things which I think would play a role if anyone wants to grow in this, data-driven, this data analytics arena that we are in. I think first and foremost, you need to have an open mind. That is, I think, the foundation of learning. Because until and unless you have an open mind, you cannot learn anything.
Mhm.
So be it data driven, be it otherwise, in any case, it's very important to have an open mind. So the first thing that any individual should do is to be open to learning, to believe that I do not have all the answers. And it's okay not to have all the answers, because
Mhm.
when you do not have all the answers, that is the first place when you start learning. Because, say, for example, Albert Einstein says that perplexity is the beginning of knowledge. So
Mhm.
until you are perplexed, until you have questions, until you have those problems, you will never find answers. You will never grow. So I think the best way would be to mentally understand and realize that I do not know all the things. No matter how good I am at my work, I do not know all the things. And there is always someone who has more knowledge, more experience, more exposure than I already have. Once you have that mindset, you start learning.
Mhm.
And then definitely everything takes its time, and you reach there, and you reap the benefits of all the data that is being collected. But this is something very new for us in Pakistan, I believe.
I mean,
So I
I
am
think
sure West.
no, I mean, even here, like it's very relatively newer than a lot of other things. A lot of organizations here, they don't really know what to do with it. They just know that, they want to apply data science, they want to apply machine learning, but they don't really have a clear, plan, or it's funny because yeah, I've seen in organizations where they're pushing for machine learning and data science, but they haven't figured out why they need it or even if they need it, right? But they're just forming teams, and then after 6 months, the team is disbanded, and then they're forming new teams again, and then those teams get disbanded. Um, yeah, even here, people don't really know what to do with it. Yeah.
No, but I see it as a very positive sign, and let me tell you why. Because every time when something new, anything new comes in your life, you initially start experimenting with it, right? So
Mm-hmm.
for example, remember the first time you bought uh, your 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 touch phone, smartphone, and you are doing all kinds of things. You at that particular time you probably didn't have any idea as to what else this machine could do, but you were experimenting. So I think organizations who are trying all of these things, which may not make sense at this point in time,
Mm-hmm.
but remember, these are the initial stages. You have to experiment with them, and things probably won't work the way we want them to work initially. And
Mm-hmm.
probably instead of increasing your productivity, initially it will decrease your productivity.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of increasing employee engagement, it might initially decrease the engagement. But this is the learning phase. Once we have overcome uh, this problem, things will transform rapidly, very rapidly. So I think it's the right thing to play with the data, to experiment, to fail as many times as you can, as quickly as you can, because once these things are uh, they take shape, they go towards maturity. So the organizations who have been experimenting for a very long time would be the one that would be
Mm-hmm.
reaping the benefits.
No, for sure. I guess that makes sense. Yeah, you want to keep trying, trying again, experimenting with it, and then seeing, hey, I never knew I could do this with it. And I guess that only
Yeah,
comes with you, it's an iterative process, right? You try it, and then it doesn't work, then you try it again, and it doesn't work, and then eventually it works. Yeah.
exactly, exactly.
Yeah, okay, that's interesting. Really wanted to talk, a bit about your book that you've written, taking the quantum world and, applying it to leadership and business. That was a very interesting reading. Uh, so yeah, I mean, I'm doing my master's right now, and so it's in computer science, and I'm really interested in how the computing world is, how the quantum computing, sorry, is changing, the world, especially blockchain, and, whether or not blockchains can be quantum secured, quantum proofed, and things like that. So that was a very interesting read of, to read your book, to compare it to the business world and the leadership world. For those who don't know, can you talk a bit about your book?
Sure. So I've recently written this book, Leading in a Quantum World, with my colleague from University of Cambridge, Dina Abu Luban.
Mhm.
So we have written this book, and the idea was that I've been fascinated by quantum physics for a very long time. I mean, I get very excited when I read about quantum physics, when I watch the videos and the concepts that are being shared. Very interesting. Uh, and similarly, I have always been interested in leadership as well. So when I was in Ireland, I thought that it would be a very good idea to maybe sort of amalgamate these two, because normally when we talk about leadership, people are of the opinion that leadership is not a science, rather an art. So my idea was to make people question that. Why can't leadership be a science? There can be a science to it. And that's how sort of it started, that, I started thinking that, are there any similarities between quantum physics and leadership? And can quantum physics help or inspire leaders to be better at what they do? And that's how it started. And then, we took the ideas from quantum physics. For example, we are talking about entanglement.
Mhm.
Now, people from who have studied science or who have studied quantum physics, they know very well what is entanglement. But people who are not that much interested in physics, uh, how can entanglement help a leader become better? Or say, for example, what is superpositioning, and how
Mhm.
can the concept of superpositioning be used in leadership? So I think that was very interesting.
No, I mean, yeah, I mean, I read the book and I found it very interesting, and it was a very good read. I highly recommend everyone to read it. So, can you give an example of, let's say, like, to a person who doesn't know anything about quantum physics or anything about, quantum computing, quantum mechanics, who has a very, as you said, like an art kind of approach to leadership, how would you describe quantum physics to them? And how can they, how would you describe how they can use it in their day-to-day practices?
Okay, very good. So let's start with understanding quantum physics first. So before I go into talking about quantum physics, I would like to know if people know about physics. So let's put things in simple words. Now, what is physics? Physics is the science or the study of how things work. So for example, this is a cell phone. How does this work? So understanding the science, we would call that physics. Okay, now that is physics. Now, what is quantum physics? A lot of people who have studied physics, say for example in their matriculation or stuff, they must have read about atoms. Everything is made up of atoms. And what do we have inside atoms? We have protons and electrons, right? That's what our general understanding is, that everything in the universe is made up of atoms, and that's it. There's nothing except atoms. Quantum physics is the branch of science that talks about things at the subatomic level. So now the science has proven that atoms are not the smallest things in understanding anything. So there are things which are inside the atoms that sort of make what it is, and this is where one of the theories from quantum physics come in, that is called the string theory. Now, string theory of quantum physics says that everything in the universe at the subatomic level is made up of these small vibrating strings, just like the rubber bands that we have. Mm-hmm. So everything in the universe at the subatomic level, at the very base, at the very foundation, is made up of these strings which are continuously vibrating. So the study of how those things work at the subatomic level is the study of quantum physics. That's called quantum physics. And for those of you who are unaware of it, the laws of quantum physics are very different from the laws of classical physics. So a lot of our beliefs in physics would be challenged when we study quantum physics. Mm-hmm. So I can give an example if you want.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so for example, in classical physics, our understanding is that one thing cannot be at two different locations at the same time.
Oh,
I cannot be at two.
Are you disproving the, what do you call it, the speed of light?
Yeah, well, we are coming to that.
Yeah. Okay.
So there is this, we have this general understanding that one person cannot be at two different places at the same time. And this is true for everything else as well. Like this cell phone, it's either here or it's not here. But in quantum physics, there is something which is called the superposition. Now, what is superposition? Superposition, for those who are unaware of it, superposition is a phenomenon in quantum physics which says that a single particle can be at two different locations at the same time. Now, this doesn't make sense, but this is a fact. And scientists at this point in time do not know why it happens, but they do know that this happens. So similarly, you have this concept of entanglement. So entanglement is when two particles interact with each other, they get entangled, they get sort of connected with each other. And once they are entangled, they are connected with each other, no matter how far they go from each other, they can communicate with each other instantly. And this is where the speed of light thing comes in. We are of the opinion generally that nothing in the universe can travel faster than the speed of light. This is a very basic understanding. Every single person who has studied physics, science would know that. But at the same time, if two particles that are entangled and they are far away from each other. Say, for example, one is is on Earth, and the second one is in Mars. They can communicate with each other instantly, and when I say instantly, faster than the speed of light.
Mm-hmm.
So again, it doesn't make sense, but this is a fact, and this is the reason why Albert Einstein would say about entanglement specifically, spooky action at a distance.
Mm-hmm.
So the concepts of quantum physics have messed up the minds of even the most geniuses of the last century. So if we are getting sort of confused, I think that's pretty normal.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So how can you take all that and apply it to, like a situation in an organization?
Okay. Well, for that, I would recommend people to read the book because it's you have read the book, so you would have an
Yeah.
idea. It's not a book. It's basically a workbook.
Yep.
So the idea behind that book, because I have read a lot of leadership books, and what I have found that, they talk about things that make sense, but that's it.
Mm-hmm.
My idea was to create or to develop the content in a way which engages the audience to do something. I'm very action oriented.
Mm-hmm.
I do not believe in talking about leadership, talking about all these motherly statements. Uh, I would rather translate that into action. So the concepts that we have shared in the book, it's a step-by-step process where we have asked the audience or the readers to reflect, to question, and then through the process, step by step, they sort of realize as to how they can learn and improve. So just to give you an example, say for example, the concept of superposition uh, gives a leader this thought that you cannot be at two different places at the same time, but still you can. And how is that possible? If you train your team members to be as competent as you are, then definitely it's a multiplier effect.
Mm-hmm.
So I cannot be running a session at two different places at the same time. But if I have trained my subordinate and I have trained him or her to be as good as I am, as energetic as I am, as enthusiastic as I am, then definitely if I am running one session, he or she can run the other session.
Mm-hmm.
So just to give them an idea as to how they can learn from nature. Nature is the best teacher. So if something that is happening in nature so flawlessly, I think leaders should also learn from it and replicate it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that totally makes sense. That we have to do is just turn around and look what's going on around us, and we can learn a great deal of things. Yeah. Thank you very much for having this call with me. I really appreciate it. And we'll I'm sure. Well, I learned a lot just from talking to you about leadership, consultancy, and more about quantum physics and the quantum world in general. Hopefully, people watching this will learn a thing or two about leadership. Can you repeat the name of the book again for the audience if they want to go read it?
Sure. The name of the book is Leading in a Quantum World, and it is available on Amazon for our global audiences. And I'll also share the email address with Mushahid, and
Mm-hmm.
he can share that with you. Those of you who cannot access Amazon can email us to get the copy of book. And I hope that it adds value in your life. My message would be that learning is a lifelong process. Invest in your learning. Invest in your learning. Invest in your learning. There is no alternate, no shortcut to success until and unless you develop competence. So focus on developing competence. Focus on improving yourself every single day, even say 0.5%, but do it continuously. Especially our youth, and especially our youth from Chitral. I would humbly request them, please, please focus on developing competence, focus on being competent. And I mean, success would be at your doorstep if you do that.
Well said. Yep. I totally agree with you. Again, thank you very much, Kareem.
Thank you very much, Mushahid.
Yep.
Good day.
Yep. Take
Thank
care.
you. Bye-bye.